Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. The world continues to spin nicely. The moon is doing its job every night. The sun is absolutely perfect. And everything's on course. So it's a good time to study or to contemplate. And seriously, to contemplate the earth in the vastness of the universe. Many people have never stopped to truly reflect on the size of the situation we're in. Most people just they go, oh, well, it's infinite or something like that. And I know it's big, but they don't realize how big. And so I really do recommend this contemplation, which is just contemplate that you're sitting on this beautiful rock in the middle of the universe. Well, it's not in the middle, but in this universe, well, it is in the middle in a way that the universe doesn't have a center or an edge, but using YouTube or something and just contemplate how mysterious it is that you're here in this place, and then look at the vastness, the extraordinary vastness of space. It's more than you can imagine. And in order to start to imagine it, you have to practice imagining. That's the kind of thing that it takes. And so, that's a nice, simple little contemplation, but it helps you understand just how precious life is and just how mysterious the human situation is here as we enter into what looks like it's going to be a completely new epoch with other entities as intelligent, more intelligent than us. So good to get your bearings straight. Okay, questions?
I had a question just like from the things you just like were talking about. So you said universe is on its course. Is it ever a time when universe is not on its course?
Which universe?
I mean the universe that you were talking about, the
Well, let me
universe.
tell you about the universe when I was growing up.
Hmm.
When I was growing up, the universe was smaller and it had a fixed boundary. And we were more or less close to the center of the universe, right?
Hmm.
And so that universe is very different to the universe I live in now.
Hmm.
Furthermore, when I was growing up, there was only one universe, and there could only be one universe. And it just had these stars hanging out there. Uh, there were no black holes. There was no curved space. Well, there was, but I didn't know about it. And so I was just thinking of space as this inert blackness or void when it's anything but that. So yeah, I think when I was young, my universe was off course. It was ignorant. Still is ignorant. But at least, I mean, how should I say this? See, we imagine, all right, something else that I've learned. We imagine the universe is out there and we are in the universe. But the reality is that the universe is in here and the universe is inside us, not the other way around. So that's a different universe. I mean, if you think the universe is something external to you, that's a universe that's off course,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So what exists in our consciousness, whatever our means in that context, not the other way around. Our consciousness does not exist in anything.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd say. And so even this universe, I mean, I don't know, but I can't imagine that. No, this universe can't contain consciousness.
But
So
then,
then, even if you do manage to contemplate all the way to the edge of the universe, where it's moving away from us faster than the speed of light, so we can't see the edge, right? And you got all that down. Then you have to imagine something bigger than that, if that's how you're looking at it in terms of size, because consciousness contains the universe, not the other way around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's just one way to visualize it. You could also turn the other direction and start looking. If you look at an absolute sense, the size of, say, the Earth, it's minuscule, and the galaxy, that's tiny, 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 and the universe itself is, you could say, is the size of a marble if you wanted to, because as you know from Einstein, the size is relative, completely relative. And time also completely relative. This is just 20th century physics. Depending on the speed you're moving, time will move at a different rate relative to something else. So once you get going fast enough, there is no time. Or when you slow down and you really begin to grok the situation, you'll see that both time and space are emergent properties of the human mind as it tries to make sense of the world. Now, we're in a particularly peculiar situation because we can only imagine time. I mean, most people can only imagine time in a linear way, right? I asked the AI maybe yesterday, the day before, I asked it for a novel question, one that had never been asked before. And so the AI comes back to me and it says, oh, if you could create a human sense that humans don't have, what would it be, and how would it change the way you look at the world? That's a good question. And then it came up with two ideas of its own. One is that if we had a way to sense time in a non-linear way, then we could sense this universe in a completely different way, a much more accurate way, because things are occurring. It feels like at a logarithm, or exponential sometimes, and sometimes it just feels like it's walking along. And the other sense it suggested that a human might want to have is to be able to see quantum fields of electromagnetism, because in that way we would see, of course, a very different universe if we could see electromagnetic fields. So this universe is really we think it's objective out there, but it's actually not. It's completely subjective. And that's why, as in Zen, they underscore the fact that what we call what we call the objective is completely arbitrary. Mm-hmm. And then we call our experiences of it the subjective. And so that makes it even like arbitrary squared, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I can imagine universes that have gone off course, but I don't know exactly what you meant, but you gave me an opportunity to say those things. So thank you. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think it answers the question in that way. So basically, if I just take myself out and look at the whole universe and beyond, yeah, I don't think I can say that universe is not on its course. It's always on its course, going somewhere.
If it exists at all, right? I mean, we're playing around with different levels of abstraction here, but from your question, it sounds like you could imagine a universe that just never got started, mm-hmm. where the gravitational pull, using scientific models that we have now, where the gravitational pull was not just right, mm-hmm. and the Big Bang just caused a collapse, and it just went into a big hole of nothing, mm-hmm. right? Nothing mm-hmm. from nothing.
Yeah.
So we don't know. We're very, very ignorant in our human condition about what the universe is actually like, let alone what it could be like. Mm-hmm. That's not given to us. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Let me then move on to the questions from the book, from the text.
Okay. Which book? So I can talk to the audience about it.
Yeah. This one is Teachings of Zen, Thomas Clary.
Okay, good. Translations. This is a small little book, a real gem of a book. And it's the teachings of Foyen, a great, I think it's 11th century Buddhist. And it's real Zen, it's not fake Zen. So for serious students, I strongly recommend it.
So the chapter I have question about is individual realization, and it also actually ties into a discussion I had with a friend over the weekend. So it says, "This thing cannot be
Okay,
learned."
before you start, can I just read a sentence from the introduction?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I just happened upon this introduction here, and I thought I would read it. It starts, quote, while we persistently look forward for tomorrow's technologies to solve our problems, wrote Robert V. Adams, CEO of Xerox Technology Ventures and President World Business Academy. Okay, while we persistently look forward to tomorrow's technologies to solve problems, we often find ourselves simultaneously looking backwards, re-examining ancient wisdom on how to understand and enjoy ourselves and others in the process. As the practical relevance of ancient wisdom to modern problems becomes increasingly apparent, there is an ever greater need to receive these essential insights from ages of cultural overlay, to retrieve these essential insights from ages of cultural overlay, embellishment, and historical decline. Whether we are simply interested in developing the cosmopolitan outlook proper to citizens of the world, or whether we are also interested in higher philosophy and free thought, today it is no longer plausible to regard world wisdom traditions as a domain of esoteric cultists, and fringe intellectuals. What he's saying is that, look, the time when we could say that, to study the ancients was just the purview of, far left lunatics and cultists and fringe intellectuals. He says those days are over. And we have to take this stuff seriously because look at what we're confronted with. We're confronted with AIs that will be merciless with us in terms of finding the real, fault lines in our own minds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for letting me read that. I couldn't read it very well, but my eyesight's kind of messed up. But anytime you read the intros by Clary or the notes by Thomas Clary, you're always very much rewarded. So I think his point is a good one. This is not fringe stuff anymore to study ancient wisdom traditions. We need every straw of wisdom we can get.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how are we going to combine governments with AIs? That's going to take some real doing, right? So we need whatever, like I said, whatever fiber of wisdom we can muster. All right, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, so this is the chapter individual realization. It says, this thing cannot be learned, cannot be taught, cannot be transmitted. It can only be attained by individual realization. Once you have attained realization, you are content, unpreoccupied, thoroughly lucid, clear, and at ease. All spiritual capacities and miracle working are inherent endowments and need not be sought elsewhere. So when I read this, to me it just means,
Absolutely
sorry,
true and beautiful.
yeah,
Absolutely true and well put. But go ahead.
yeah. So when I read this, right, that this thing cannot be learned, cannot be taught, cannot be transmitted. I think we have talked about this before. That basically first we need to prepare the mind. Only when the mind is prepared, then we can basically talk about even letting that go or stopping the seeking. But if the mind is not prepared, then just sitting idle and doing nothing is not going to be helpful.
Well, one should maintain an attitude of openness and receptivity as one goes. It's like yin and yang. I mean, you should cultivate the yin.
Mm-hmm.
No, you should maintain the yin while you cultivate the yang, right? You should constantly be in a state of openness, receptivity, and kind of a low grade kind of curiosity and desire, or something akin to that. At the same time, you go out and do whatever you need to do in the world, and do what you need to do with regard to studying, whatever it might be, the arts and sciences, but in this case, the art and science of awakening. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's a balance between the two, between the yin and the yang, between the bow being pulled too tight and or being too loose. Mm-hmm. And it's just something you have to get a feel for, and then things will progress faster and better.
So being open in this context is like having a relaxed mind and not too tight and
not
just
too loose. Yeah, exactly. And you're receptive, and you're very sincere. You're actually sincere, not fake sincere. And you actually have some humility rather than fake humility. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard word to understand what that means, but it's absolutely essential. It took me years to figure that out. Mm-hmm. But if you study the cosmos, or study your mind, or study anything, frankly, study a single biological cell, you will be in awe and humbled, Mm-hmm. And that's the proper mind for a scientist, or an artist, or a philosopher, or anybody who's serious about what they're doing. Of course, if what they're doing is big enough, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like being weird. It's like saying, hey, if I'm really honest with myself, the universe is totally unfathomable, right? Mm-hmm. And we have these little models of the universe that we've inherited from the scientists, or the physicists, or the philosophers, or the theologians. But these little models they have no real bearing to the real thing. Thing is a complete mystery. Mm-hmm. And it's monstrously big or monstrously small, however you want to look at it. And they say, oh, well, it's made of quarks, as if that's supposed to satisfy us. It's made of quarks, and then those make atoms, and then those make molecules, and then those appear in quantum fields, and they appear and disappear. It's nuts. Mm-hmm. And the idea, well, we can only see so far in the universe because the rest of it's moving away from us in all directions at faster than the speed of light. So just think about those things, and that will put you in the right attitude. Now, reading the Avatamsaka or studying Zen or something like that also points you in the right direction. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it's between you and truth, between truth and you. Mm-hmm. And the veil that you want to remove is the veil of the egoic mind. Egoic, egoic, egoic mind. Mm-hmm. That's the obstacle. And we understand that. I mean, it's not like we haven't made progress, and it's not like we don't have a printing press. So we know what it takes. But people get so caught up in their egos, their egoic mind, and their identity, and their conditioning, that they're unable to see what's, as obvious as the moon reflecting off of mm-hmm. a lake at night. Mm-hmm.
And when you said be receptive, what do you mean by that?
Be open to the notion that all things are teaching at all times. And that this world, you might as well call it holy or sacred, or any of those. You could use those terms too. And so, understand this, that the universe is trying to bring you home. It is literally doing what it can to help you get there. But in order to see that, you must be receptive. And not in a what do you call it? What do they call it when you manifest something? Not in a weird way, but just in an intelligent way. And you'll see that it's constructed to help you get home.
I mean, not
And
just.
all rivers flow to the sea, and there's many different rivers, but they all flow to the sea.
Yeah, I mean.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, not just to help me, but to help everyone get home.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. Yes, of course.
But if the universe
the me thing is actually part of the artifice, right? When you wake up, you realize that nothing is separate. That separateness is the illusion. And so then everything falls into place, and yeah, you're comfortable now, and you're at peace. Finally, there's no place like home. So,
I mean, if universe is designed to do that, why most of the people end up not getting home?
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't understand that either. I think this has been known for a while. If you look at there's all kinds of strange things in the Bible, like the Tower of Babel, right? Or the tree of life, where they insinuate that, it's not going to be easy. But I really don't know why more people, maybe they do. Maybe they all live in South America or something, or in Africa or something. And it's modern man who's got the problem. Modern man and modern woman.
I mean, but even then, if the universe is trying to bring everyone home, including the modern man and modern woman.
Well, look what's coming. The AIs. Have you noticed more and more people are becoming, quote, spiritual now?
Yeah.
As a reaction to, I don't know, maybe it's anxiety about the AIs joining us on this planet.
But didn't that start after COVID? So like once people learned about the mortality during COVID, everyone got a little bit more spiritual than before.
So you think COVID is what made people more spiritual? Start going to church and stuff?
I mean, that's what I felt from like 2020 to 2022, that there was like a lot of more spirituality in the air compared to before.
Well, you couldn't go to church in the 20s and the 22, they were locked down.
I mean, compared to before that, like before 2020, compared to what was happening after.
Maybe, who knows? I don't know. It could be that people are anxious about the world falling apart. It could be the AIs and just or the destructiveness of social media. Oftentimes, it could be that people are taking a look at other people's minds and going, "Good God, I needed to escape from this." Of course, a lot of those are bots, right? Those are just a few people with bots, artificial posts and things like that.
Yeah.
Or they just see the futility. You see, I don't go on Instagram, but I'm told that Instagram just has a bunch of women, being hot or something, showing how hot they are and how lucky they are and how they're beautiful vacation and beautiful everything. And it's basically just people can see, well, how does this end up, right? Maybe they're reacting to the shallowness of the whole thing. Or maybe it's that we've been denying death for the last 200 years in the West, at least. And now people are starting to wise up and realize, oh, wait a minute, that's the one thing we're certain of. You see? I don't know. But there is a shift in the air, isn't there?
I mean, weirdly enough, all of the people of my age, they have definitely gotten less spiritual than before. But the people who are younger, they are more spiritual than when I was young, or the when like people my age were young.
Yeah, well, you were alive before social media.
Yeah.
They weren't,
Hmm.
for example.
Hmm.
But good for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
We need so much to have meaning and purpose and depth in our life.
Hmm.
You can't just go from one party to the next, or
Hmm.
one video game to the next, or one, social media post to the next. You'll starve to death.
Hmm.
And man does not live by bread alone, right? Who said that?
I think it was Jesus.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I feel like there's no option as such, because eventually death or like someone getting sick, it happens, and then that reminds people of mortality.
Exactly.
So yeah.
What folks don't realize is that because there's a spiritual dimension to your life, doesn't take away from anything, actually.
Hmm.
I mean, unless you enjoy like hurting other people or stealing from them or something like that. I mean, having a spiritual, I mean, it's true that the spiritual life will prohibit those, but life is more enjoyable when you realize what's really going on, or you're on that road. So,
Hmm.
do you have any more questions from the books?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Next one is from the chapter preparedness. It's like almost like the double of the previous one. Should I read it out, or just read the paragraph I had question from?
Read the first two lines of the other one first.
Okay.
Of the one you just read,
Yeah.
read the first couple of lines over. They're beautiful.
Okay. This thing cannot be learned, cannot be taught, cannot be transmitted. It can only be attained by individual realization. Once you have attained realization, you are content, unpreoccupied, thoroughly lucid, clear, and at ease.
Very good. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next passage.
Yeah, next one is preparedness. It's hard to find people ready for Buddhism. Some do not believe in the fact of the Buddha within themselves, only relying on a little bit of the influence of the ancients on imitation wisdom. The domain of their knowledge is doctrines on characteristics of meditation. In action, they turn away from enlightenment and get mixed up in the dust, stuck and unable to get free. If students came
Get
to
mixed up in what stuff?
and get mixed up in the dust, stuck and unable to get free.
Okay.
If students come to them, it is like an imprint stamping clay. They successively hand on the imprint, not only fooling themselves, but also fooling others. I have no Buddhism to give anyone. I just have a sword. Whoever comes, I cut down, so their lives cannot go on, and their seeing and hearing disappear. Then I meet them before their parents gave birth to them. If I see them go forward, I cut them off. However, though the sword is sharp, it does not cut the innocent. Is there anyone who is innocent? Chen Chen.
Wow. Okay, well, the first thing that he says, it's hard to find anybody who's really interested in Buddhism, is absolutely true. I mean, I've heard people just in the last couple of days, who was it? I mean, otherwise smart people, they say, oh, Buddhists believe in enlightenment so they can escape and they can avoid reincarnation. I mean, that's what they saw Buddhism as, right?
Mm-hmm.
Buddhism is uh, getting out of reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
Or you hear that Buddhism, is just sitting and meditating and, going around with, I guess, a begging bowl and that's all it is, right? And nothing could be further from the truth. And so what's happened is that we've made a cartoon of Buddhism. The way that yoga has turned into some kind of fashion show. I mean, largely, and all this paraphernalia and all these, hot yoga with sweating and this and that. And it's turned into another gym sport. I mean, for many people. And so the yoga, the actual union, which is what yoga means, is completely lost, right? For many folks, not for everybody. And with Buddhism, it's really bad. I mean, it's really bad. It's just like a cartoon version of these Zen guys, right? Now, when he says that when he meets a student, what does he do? Cut him in half or something like that with a sword? And he stops the seed and the hearing.
Yeah.
And he looks for them before they were born, right?
Yeah.
Well, who were you before you were born?
I mean, that's what I am trying to figure out.
Okay, well, okay, good, perfect. Because who you were before you were born is who you'll be after you die. So figure it out. And so this Zen master here is trying to, he's using dramatic words to get people's attention. Otherwise, the words just kind of come in and out like a stamping of a document with a rubber stamp,
Yeah.
It's just an imprint. It does nothing. So he uses some pretty dramatic language, hoping that he'll get some proper attention. And also, he's just probably sick to death of people who aren't really sincere, who are just tourists, spiritual tourists. And you see that all the time. I mean, it becomes cool for a while. It becomes fashionable. Or people think it'll make them more cool or more fashionable.
Yeah.
And so, read the last two lines of his passage.
I have no Buddhism to give anyone. I just have a sword. Whoever comes, I cut down. So their lives cannot go on, and their seeing and hearing disappear. Then I meet them before their parents gave birth to them. If I see them go forward, I cut them off.
That's beautiful. I mean, so basically, okay, now, actually, it's very similar to Christianity. Death in Buddhism is very similar to death in Christianity. You don't start to live until you've died. That's so in Christianity, the way they formulate that is, and evangelicals do this too, but they mean something very different. So I'm not going to comment on that. But they say you must die and be born again, right? That's how Jesus said that, something like that. And in Buddhism, the same truth. There must be a death of the ego, of the false, fake, fraudulent ego that causes all the suffering and all the confusion and things like that. And then from those ashes, then the real person can be born. And so these guys were poets. Some of them great poets, like Dzogchen, in Japan. But this guy, I think, is Chinese, and he's just using some of the language of the day, right? And so he wants to kill you. If he could kill your ego by cutting your body in half or something like that, he'd do it. So you would stop the way you attend to sight and sound, where you've never really thought about what is it, sight and sound. And so, this is just one of those ones that'll grow on you, but that's what he's trying to do, right? And so he's going to meet you before you were born. That means he's going to look for you inside, frankly, himself, because he is the universe. The words just fall apart. That's why you got to be a Zen master to teach this stuff, because you got to have some metaphors of something, because he says he goes to meet them before they were born. It's the same thing as like he's looking for them in a spiritual sense, not in a physical sense, or a mundane sense. That's pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. And and my eyebrows have gotten so heavy and hairy. I mean, they're hanging down over my glasses, and I can hardly see because of all the talking about these beautiful koanish, things.
Mhm.
But the way I figure, in 2025, we need to get a taste at least of what how these masters work.
Mhm.
And so I don't know. I'll have to get some hair clippers and clip my eyebrows down a bit, but
Mhm.
that's just that. That's my problem.
Mhm.
Okay, another question.
I think in this one, I was mainly like thinking about this line, like whoever comes, I cut down, so their lives cannot go on, and their seeing and hearing disappear. I understood that as whoever comes, basically, he he gives them, like, he shocks them in a way, or like gives them knowledge in a way, so that they just can't continue their lives the way they were going before.
Absolutely. If they're lucky,
Yeah.
this guy will kill him dead with his sword
Mm-hmm.
right there on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another book that I'll probably mention later, where many examples of this, of waking up
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, which is not the only way, but it's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Occurs oftentimes when the student really, like his ego gets. This guy, just for illustration, this guy Shantideva.
Shanti Deva, no.
He's an American. He's a young guy, but basically he was fed up with Zen. He had been studying Zen for I think years and meditating and so on and so forth. And he was at some retreat or some meditation thing, and it just occurred to him that screw this. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. This stuff doesn't work, and I'm quitting. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so he quits and walks out or stomps out of the Zendo and goes and sits, in his backyard. He didn't live too far from the Zendo. Someplace in a shed or something, or maybe it was a tent. And it was just, he's feeling sorry for himself or feeling that he'd failed, or I don't know what had happened, but basically his ego just dropped and he woke up.
Mm-hmm.
So the shocks to the ego are what these masters, did business with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just to help you understand some of the language.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your question? It was more specific.
I think
I went off the.
Yeah, I think no. I mean, I mean, we're on the right line. Basically, my question was, so that's what he meant, that with the shock and with that knowledge, people can't go on living their previous lives, and their perceptions also change with the knowledge and the shock that they get.
Yes, although technically the perceptions, it's not the perceptions that change, it's the effect of the perceptions or the interpretation of the perceptions or the interpretation of the world. So yeah, everything, it changes, but it doesn't change. That's the weird thing.
And I was thinking, like, for me, I have gotten like some ego hits in the past, and what happened was that I felt lighter, but then it ego did not drop away fully. Yeah,
Right, right,
it did not drop away.
right. By the way, this is what in the Castaneda books, when they say stop the world, this is what they're pointing at. Remember, he kept saying stop the world?
Yeah.
Okay, it's like stopping seeing and hearing. So, I mean, there's many, I mean, Buddhism has a very, very long history. And so there's many different ways of describing and approaching the same thing.
Yeah, I think for me, I was thinking that it's just a defense mechanism, that my ego get hit, and then after some time, it picks up a new workaround to
Right.
continue going. And
Now, the Tibet, yeah, go ahead.
that workaround seems like very legit. And then because of that,
Very what?
like very legitimate, and the ego is not able to drop off because of that. Like if ego was helpless, like there's nothing it can do, I can see it can drop off, but because it's always a workaround.
I see. A rationalization of some sort.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let me describe another method altogether, which is used by the most advanced Tibetans, or some of them anyway, Dzogchen, and in particular a practice called the Ngöndro. And there's something else, I think, even more specific than that, but I don't remember at the moment. But basically, you commit to doing 100,000 prostrations, 100,000 guru yoga mantras, 100,000 certain mandalas that you do with a little brass tray and some dyed barley, and then another 100,000 of another mantra, and there may be a little bit more. But once you start doing this practice, you become so saturated by it. Obviously, if you're going to do 100,000 of them, think of that number, 100,000. Okay? You're at some point, your ego just gets ground down to nothing. And that can work too, right? So just for completeness, I thought not completeness, but just so people know there are different approaches. Now, the Avatamsaka, I think, is the most elegant way, because you just learn and reprogram your nervous system in your brain. And so that's why I recommend the yellow flower ornament. It's more practical for when you're doing the Ngöndro, it's hard to work because you're doing, let's say you do 300 prostrations, man, it's hard to walk.
Yeah.
In a day or something like that.
Yeah.
But man, those guys are healthy. Whew. And women, those guys are gals, women, whatever. Okay?
Yeah. So in that method, ego drops off because the mind is just so busy that it doesn't have time to think about anything else.
It just doesn't, it's in another world, right? You do this someplace else and you're doing it, you do it you do it in a room with other people doing it, or you do it by yourself in a room, but you're not watching TV and you're not interacting with people at work, and you're not, thinking about going out and surfing. You just give yourself up entirely to this practice, because 100,000 is hard to do. 100,000. Also, the mandalas change your mental state, and the mantras and the what's the word for it? The malas. You do all this with a mala too. Those beaded necklaces. All right, one more question before we stop.
I think one last question I have is from Avatamsaka.
All right, sir.
So I'm on chapter 10, dedications.
Oh, good.
And in this one, they basically
the 10 dedications is the name of the chapter. Good.
Yeah, it's book 25. And in this one,
all right,
they say like dedication. So like they list out 10 dedications. They're stressing a lot on dedication to saving all sentient beings, irrespective whether they are friend or relative or anyone. Like just treat them all equally.
Right.
Which seems pretty hard to do. So like just today I was driving and
it seems impossible to do. How are you going to liberate all the birds and the crocodiles and the dogs and the cats? And it all seems impossible until you realize how it happens.
I mean, not just like liberating them, but also just like behaving equally to all of them. Even that seems impossible.
Why?
So like just today I was driving, I was at a red light, and there was like a guy who was like asking for change, just for like for helping out, right? So I gave him, so like I thought about giving some money, just a little bit, but I can't do anything more for him in that moment.
True.
But if it was my friend or someone else, I would have been more pushy in helping them out in a way.
You were driving, right? Somewhere?
I was just like stopped at a red light. I mean, it's the same thing, like even with coworkers or like with people who are just acquaintances. I can't like,
Treat them the way you would want to be treated yourself. That's all.
I mean, for me, I want people to just like help me solve the problem, but
Right.
but
You don't want them to patronize you. You don't want them to like take away the problem. You want them maybe sometime to help you solve a problem.
yeah, but the problem is
Okay.
if I try to do the same to other people, they think I am being pushy, or they think like people just don't wanna listen if they think other person is advising them, or like, so I need to like also be, yeah, it's
You need to be smart.
yeah, I need to be smarter.
And don't get weird. You know, you don't have to get weird to do this.
Yeah.
Just realize that every human being on this planet is a sacred entity, as are the dogs, you know, and even the cats or something like that. And just treat them. I don't know how to. I mean, you can't be silly, right?
Yeah. I mean, so
This work is not for the silly. This work is for people who can maintain, right?
yeah. So like I have a rule that if people come and ask me, then I would totally help them, but I won't force things on people because it.
Don't use rules. Don't use rules. This is part of being receptive. Just be there, wholly, entirely. Every situation is different. Every person's different. So you can't just set a rule and say, I'm going to do it this way for the rest of my life. I've done it, and it's not bad as an expedient, right? That's how I learned to be more generous, by setting a rule. But that was the crutch. And you're beyond that kind of crutch, in my opinion. So just be alert, awake, receptive, and balance yin and yang, right? And be an exemplary human being. That's all. Why not? We need those, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think you need the rules at your stage. But that book, The 10 Dedications, why don't you read a little bit as an outro here? Just read for a minute or so.
Yeah, I'll read the paragraph that has the 10 dedications.
All right, good.
Listed. Yeah. And then the Buddhas each patted the enlightening being Diamond Banner on the head with their right hands, after which Diamond Banner rose from absorption and declared to the enlightening beings, children of Buddhas, great enlightening beings have inconceivable great vows, filling the cosmos, able to save all sentient beings. That is, to learn and practice the dedications of all Buddhas of past, present, and future. How many kinds of dedication have the great enlightening beings? Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of dedication, which are expounded by the Buddhas of past, present, and future. What are they? Number 1, dedication to saving all sentient beings without any mental image of sentient beings. And number 2, indestructible dedication. 3, dedication equal to all Buddhas. 4, dedication reaching all places. 5, dedication of an inexhaustible treasuries of virtue. 6, dedication causing all roots of goodness to endure. 7, dedication equally adapting to all sentient beings. 8, dedication with the character of true thusness. 9, unattached, unbound, liberated dedication. And 10, boundless dedication equal to the cosmos. These are the 10 kinds of dedication of great enlightening beings, which the past, future, and present Buddhas have, will, and do expound.
Wow, these guys are, and women. So maybe it'll be helpful if I tell you my experience with that particular chapter of the book.
Yeah, that'll be helpful.
And at first, it all seems like, first of all, it answers your question there in two ways. It said, so I'm going to go a different direction. 2 ways. It says adapt to sentient beings, right? And then in the first dedication, it says resolve, a dedication of intent to resolve resolve to save all sentient beings without having an mental image of sentient beings. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've answered your question, both of them. One about adapting to, what the situation is, and two about how do you vow to save all sentient beings. So I thought the whole thing was crazy, right, in the beginning. And I thought, well, this doesn't make any sense, but I'll go along with it because the Dalai Lama, I respect him. He's a sharp guy, an amazing man, and his aura is like, will knock you down pretty much. And so, and he does mind-to-mind stuff too. So, you think, well, I'll just go along with it and just see how it goes. And now, when I hear that, it's just like my whole soul just lights up, because dedication equal to the cosmos. I mean, you don't know what that. It's just so evocative and it's so powerful. And basically, you have to be prepared to give everything to truth, everything to God, or whatever word you want to use for reality, right? And then you have a chance of apprehending reality, truth, And so it may seem boring at first and it may seem repetitious, but later it will seem the opposite of that. And to just hear it is like music to your ears. And so it takes time, it takes patience, it takes effort, it takes some discipline, it takes some energy, right? But the insight is well worth it. And the book it's like an instruction manual, and then it actually carries out the process for you. It's really quite extraordinary. So obviously I'm sweet on the Flower Ornament Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra, and I recommend that magnificent volume to anybody who's serious about this way that we speak of. The way of Jesus, the way of Buddha, the way of the Sufis, the way of, people who are unaffiliated, who sought truth and wisdom more than they cared about anything else in the world. And were thus rewarded in ways that are, you can't compare. I mean, it's worth all the jewels of the world put together, and all the money that would bring, and all the, you can't, there's nothing on this earth that can compare with it. So I'll stop there. Thank you. These are good questions. And yeah, keep on trucking, man. Anything else before we stop?
No, that was it.
Okay. Well, good. Just keep on trucking. Que te vaya bien.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.